know a lot about anger, dear. You probably wouldn't think it, but I was a very angry young man. Quite violent. I was strong. I had a farm. I was used to dealing with big, rough things. Well, it's part of our nature, isn't it, dear? Part of our fallen nature. I'm less angry than I was now, yes, dear. But yes, there's what they call righteous anger, and well, you can debate that if you like. But my first marriage was, well, really, we were both so ignorant we didn't understand, but gosh, I did burst out into anger on many occasions. I'm sorry about now, but at the time, what else could I do? I didn't know any better. That's how we are, aren't we? And we learn. I'm very sympathetic to people that get overtaken by violence and anger. There, but by the grace of God go I. That's why I think it's. Try not to judge, as Jesus tells us, judge not. I think it was one of the very early instructions I received at the meditation school. I remember, don't express negative emotion, don't criticize, don't judge. If we can stop being critical, it's a great help, a big step forward if we can. Try to accept whatever is, not criticize it. We may not understand, but if you criticize it yourself, you add fuel to, like that, how to go, fuel to the fire, don't we? Two blacks don't make a white. I know it's difficult in this world, not to be critical. Condemn people who throw rubbish around, or condemn more. That's what the poor politicians. People are so unkind, aren't they? Honestly, everyone feels it. They're free to criticize them. In fact, children are taught to be critical in schools, aren't they? Then? Well. What can we do? Come back to spirit. Perhaps this is just the easier option, really, isn't it? Takes away all the problems of life, doesn't it? Just trust spirit. See, I don't know, and neither do you. We don't know. God knows. I find great comfort in that. It's a very good pointer, my dears. Your tongue, you just watch your tongue. Listen to what comes out of your mouth. And every time it says I, just let a little, like a traffic light come up, a little red light, a little warning signal. Beware, beware. I, me or mine. See, that is your ego speaking. Whenever you say I, me or mine. And it's quite deflating, really, to realize how often it comes out of our mouths. Funny enough, it was just yesterday, as Phil drove me here in the morning, I asked him whether there was going to be a packed lunch, you see. Because if you were going to have a packed lunch, then I'd know that I had to bring my own sandwiches. And Phil came back to me and he said, why don't you ask directly, should I bring sandwiches? Well, of course, in my devious way, I had been a bit embarrassed to ask that, so I'd asked, will there be packed lunch, you see? Well, of course, that was just my own deviousness. but Phil saw through it. But you see, We do our best to get off the hook, don't we? So we may try to talk in the third person, pretending it's not about the ego. And, it may help. Yes, I remember there's a fashion of it was like this in the school. I remember we always say, does one need an umbrella today? It might rain, or something like that. What does one think of, or what should one do? You're also like a fish on the hook, Phil. You're always.
And we have our little joust.
We have our joust, don't we? Yes. We can divide the world into good and evil, what's right and wrong, or best or worst. But if you think of it as come back to this stillness and then sort of gradually come down into creation, you see. Even the darkness, even the maggots eating the corpse, even all this ego or not, it all has its place, doesn't it? It all has its perfection, has its perfect beauty. You know, Jesus says to the pure, all things are pure. And even the works of dark have their own perfection, don't they? Even the anger and the ugly side of life is beautiful in its way, isn't it? What is not perfect? You know, in all of us, we've got our tummies, our bowels, it's all taking place. You can't pretend it's not there. It's all perfect and beautiful in its way, isn't it? The very scowls and anger that distort our faces has its own validity, doesn't it? Can't be other than it is. It's got to work itself out of the system. So one can really look at life and love everything, can't we? Accept everything. Everything's perfect in its way. God is working his purpose out, like the old hymn goes. Some years previous to that, Lucy, I'd met a woman, and I looked into her eyes and saw the infinite beyond. Actually, it's been happening to us quite a lot. Perhaps I'm more practiced at it now, but at the time it was a new experience for me. And it completely sort of took me beyond all normal man-woman connections, really. Opened up a new dimension. And threw me into a great depression because I could no longer fit within the world that I was living in. It took me out of that world, and so I found myself homeless and everything. I just left and I became a wanderer, just without any roots in this world. And then after a few years, a friend of mine had met this man, and he was in England at the time, and I met him, and I looked at him and I saw the same thing. Well, this is what I wanted. So I followed him. I went to America. Well, if you can imagine, I don't know if some of you have been to California, but if you can imagine a middle-aged farmer like me suddenly finding himself in San Francisco, my dear, among all those new age hippies and things. If you talk about a fish out of water, anyway, I'd never heard of women's lib or any of these new age ideas. So, anyway, I didn't get on very well, and after a few weeks, I was, to put it bluntly, cast out into the wilderness, which actually was a huge shock to me, because when you meet a chap like that, it's quite something. And to be on the receiving end of his disapproval wasn't very nice. Anyway, it was a very hard lesson at the time, but looking back, I'm very thankful for it, because it very much pricked the bubble of my ego, my pride. It was a very severe humbling, a burning. I call that book Mystic Burning, because this burning is really a purging, which is what eventually has to happen to the ego. It has to be purged out of us. And actually, I'd already been meditating over 20 years. I thought I knew something about it. I was a teacher. I had my own sort of school. I was quite a guy in the meditation world. And then you see I had to be brought to nothing again, which was quite a lesson for me. A very good lesson, but a very unpleasant one at the time. So that's what happened. So those of you who think you've got it together, who knows what lies ahead. When we think we know, we're on thin ice. When Phil got to know me and knew I'd been in this calf, he was shocked to discover I'd never heard of Bob Dylan. I knew nothing about that hippie culture at all. I was completely unaware of it. And there was I, apparently working in this little calf on one of the main sort of arteries of that movement to the West Coast. And I'd never heard of it. So talk about a sheep among the wolves. God's fool. By the way, one of the great lessons I learned when I was in Russia. I love Russia so much. I learned so much from Russia, and they love this phrase, God's fool, and many of the Russian saints are, they have more saints than you would believe possible, but two great categories of their saints. One of them are saints that are always crying. So take courage, those of you that come to tears easily, like I do, because tears are actually a mark of sanctity, at least when they're in that sort of context. And to pray with tears is a very esteemed quality. If your heart is so much in your prayer that you're in floods of tears, well, that's a sign that you're really getting to grips with it, as it's functioning. And the other category of saints is God's fools. I might be veering in that direction myself, maybe. God's fool. Well, see, to the world, it does seem foolishness, doesn't it? The wisdom of man is foolishness to God. Yes, I saw something real, dear, no question about it. Yeah. Yes, and so all subsequent commentary or anything is irrelevant compared to the reality of what he gave me. So for that I'm eternally grateful. And then I had a long period, gradually sort of, I really thought I was going out of my mind then. It was a very frightening time, as I thought I was losing my reason. But a very unpleasant few months. Literally in the wilderness, both inner and out, and gradually found my feet and came back to, well, it was nature as usual. It's been the great levelling out thing in my life. nature, the things I felt familiar with and loved, the grass and the animals. But I think Phil thinks it's a good book. I wouldn't say it's my best, but it makes it quite a nice read. I don't think in this work, I'm not one who tries. I wasn't taught to control the mind, Josh, for which I'm very grateful. And I think I know a lot of teachers do sort of work on trying to control the mind in some way. But I was not taught to do that, apart from trying not to criticize. I think this was about the only mental exercise I've been given. So I was taught to just let go and go beyond the mind. Like I'm telling you about an aeroplane just going through the clouds, and not worry about the mind. So I don't worry about it. If the mind wanders off to dream about, past or future or something, so it does. But the point is how much attention you give it. And if you come back to meditation, then you see these things, they just settle down. But if you try to fight them, what happens? They get bigger, don't they? This is why, this is the basis of the commandment from Jesus, resist not evil. Because the more you resist it, the bigger it gets. And I don't have it with me, but another of the things I like to demonstrate is that if you think, are you familiar with the icon of St. George and the Dragon? Most of you probably know that. And you know how usually he's depicted in the West as a muscular saint with a military weapon, slaying this poor dragon and blood all over the place. Well, this is how the West approaches these things. Let's beat cancer, let's get rid of poor coronavirus and all these poor things that have their place in life. We go at it like a military operation, trying to destroy it, don't we? Well, but my dear Russia taught me a much subtler way of doing it, because a proper Russian icon from the proper, what they think, of course, that their religion is the authentic Christianity, that we in the West have got it wrong. But anyway, the way they show St. George, he's on a horse of light, so the light just dances over the darkness, you see. And St. George, his face is completely serene. And there's God in the corner. He's centered on the presence in spirit, you see, in present. And his spear is a shaft of light, a shaft of consciousness. See, that just looks at the dragon. That's just darkness. Just dances over it. There's no conflict, none of this. So the dragon just melts away. More light, less dark. As simple as that. All the monsters in the world will fade away like that. Evil is not as real as we think. One of the things he did say, that it was your only safety is in humility. I remember that, yes. I think that's about the only teaching of his I remember, really. But the main thing was his eyes, what I saw when I first saw him. And on subsequent occasions, it wasn't always there, but that first impression was enough. Yes, I don't remember his teaching. The teacher comes from revelation, the real teaching. The most significant teacher in my life, Bodhi, has always been just this, the still presence, dear. That even as a boy, I think I felt in the fields, the comfort of just being with nature. And when I went on pilgrimage once to the Holy Land, what impressed me most was to realize what a country boy Jesus was. He must have had very much similar experience, maybe. I don't know, how can one say? But when you go to where I don't have any of you been to the Holy Land? One, you know, whether you wonder if you felt the same, John, but to me I was very struck by Nazareth, up there on the mountain. It's on a considerable mountain, so think of him meditating under the stars up there. I can immediately relate to that. And when we were told about the construction of houses in those days, he was very likely a cave dweller, and because and in the caves the animals, of course, were the people lived near the mouth of the cave, and the animals were just behind them, so they were all sort of all together. So he must have been even more familiar with sheep and cows than I am, and donkeys. so must have loved them just the same way, and felt comfortable with them. And then you could see how he walked down from there, down to his first encounter with the establishment at the Jews at, was it Capernaum? And of course got into trouble there, just as I do when I get among people. That's when life gets complicated. And I felt that sort of lovely kinship, sort of, and I feel a bit shy to say so, that immediately he sort of moved out of this church biblical context into a fellow countryman sort of thing, which I felt totally at home with. So I suppose that when you if you push me on the person, Bodhi, I think the answer must be Jesus. Because I do, perhaps more than ever now in old age, I think, what happened to him and how it seems to be repeated in all of our lives, really. I mentioned before that how we all bear our cross through this life. These things like anger, you see, they're all part of what we have to put up with in this life, isn't it? The pain in our legs and the pains of our hearts and minds. What we can't change, we must endure. What offended me most on the Holy Land was, you go to these places where apparently he was, like the Sermon on the Mount, or where he was transfigured, and of course there's a thumping great church up there, and you know, some churches of some denomination, some of another, but they just can't stop building these churches and imposing religion on all these pure places, you see. I remember sitting on the little bit of beach, it's only a few yards wide, where apparently he called his first disciples, the first fishermen, you know. Same water still lapping on the same sand, just the same. So it only happened yesterday. You feel you're there, really. Extraordinary. Of course, behind you there's a church, but if you look the other way, you don't see it. Extraordinary, really. Such a small scale. It's all just walking distance. It's like going down to the cafe down there. It's
He got excluded from the synagogues, similar way to you have been excluded from the church.
Exactly, John. It's really quite. It's so sweet and intimate, isn't it? That how relevant it is, these stories. And I think the reality that I felt there, you know, the immediacy that you know, although it was meant to happen 2,000 years ago, you can sort of feel it happening in the present, can't you? And this "I am with you always" becomes ever more relevant. I felt, anyway. Just sitting here and feeling this presence, you see. Where do I end and Jesus begin? And I say I mean you too. Where do any of us end? I'm with you is really true, isn't it? Because what is this that we're talking about? Of course, this is Jesus, isn't it? This is I am. So we're all Jesus, really, each one of us. We're not separate like we think we are. And we look sort of beyond the church, as it were. The church is this outer thing, and into the depth of the I beyond. It becomes almost evident, self-evident, doesn't it? There's one being, one light. I am the light of the world. Follow me. Yes, it's extraordinary. All these things seem so puzzling when we were children reading them for the first time, but they actually begin to make sense, don't they? It becomes real. Well, I wouldn't use the word should, my dear. I don't really go along with the word, with trying to force people or even persuade them, but I've found, frankly, this connection with nature beyond value. In fact, instinctively, they said, I'm sorry that I've got the advantage of looking out of the window, and, I just sort of automatically refer to the sky, because this is the constant reminder to me of the infinite presence. And even in the town, you can look out of the window and see the sky. So we're never without it, really. And again, I'm sorry you can't see it, because I can, because the sunlight's shining and the rain's falling, so there's this magical effect of water through the rain. And to me, this is just a constant reminder of the natural that is taking place around us, while we grapple with the unnatural that of course is the problem. So you just have to find what you can, my dear. The sky is always with you, and in every city these days there are trees, aren't there? There's nothing like a tree. When you're unhappy, go and put your arms around a tree, or just look at a tree. They're wonderful teachers. I think of them as angels, dear. If you read mystic approaches, I think I describe several examples of when I was a farmer, of being very aware of the pain I inflicted on the plants I was harvesting, and doing just as you suggest. I remember one occasion cutting a lettuce. No, I didn't cut it. I was thirsty. I remember one day on a hot summer day, and I was among a crop of lettuces, and I tore the head out of a lettuce and ate it. And I felt such a shock from that lettuce that I knelt down there and then and apologized, alone in the field. There were several people, I think, who were more or less realizing this at the same time. Findhorn was one of them. Findhorn started about the same time that I was farming, and they recognized the existence of the sensitivity of plants too. So yes, most certainly, plants have feelings and living feelings, and yes, I'm well aware of that. I think I've lost some of that sensitivity now, but certainly when I was working with them, it was very plain to me. I used to get so upset when I'd take my vegetables down to London to sell them, and people would treat them as though they were just commodities, put them in the shelf in the shop and just throw them around, and as though they didn't realise they had feelings. Well, of course, most people don't, do they? How many people, when they buy a potato and peel it, think of it as a living creature with feelings? People just don't see it. Some do, maybe. Certainly trees. God, you know, the way that we trim hedges now with these machines that just mash up the hedges. Horrific way, isn't it? You feel them screaming out. There were a few farmers then, when these machines were first invented, who were shocked and, you know, felt the appalling pain that was being inflicted on these hedges. But somehow, you know, we get blunted by experience, and people just take it as normal now. But they're truly horrific when these things came out. There's a lot of this sort of industrial scale machinery now that deals what used to be done by hand. At least there was some interconnection between the man and the plant. Now it's all depersonalized, isn't it? All the way through to the consumer. No wonder, you know, we've lost a lot of spiritual consciousness because it's been eradicated from our food. That was the original idea of us when, you know, those who started the organic movement, because, you know, the consciousness of the farmer may be transmitted to the plant. You know, if the farmer meditates and raises consciousness and then works with awareness, then the plant is similarly. If your mother bakes your birthday cake or something, it's got something in it, hasn't it? It's different from buying it at the shop. It's exactly the same when you're growing vegetables or producing food in any way. It's the love that's transmitted, isn't it? The love that nourishes. Well, that's the work, my dears. I suppose even on a computer we've got to somehow. Difficult, isn't it? What can we do?